was 19 years old, just the other day. Graduate student at the University of Oregon. From time to time, we'd ride the bus into the neighboring town of Eugene, which at that time was not very culturally diverse. One day I'm on the bus, and sitting across from me on the other side of the aisle was a little blonde girl, 4 or 5 years old, with her mom. When she saw me, her eyes opened wide, like she'd seen a unicorn, and she started making her way towards me. Her mother's desperately trying to distract her, goldfish crackers, whispered threats, but the girl is resolute. She's standing in front of me. "Can I touch your hair?" The whole bus freezes, not knowing whether I'm going to burst into tears or sue. It's a pity that such an innocent question was so loaded. Now, lots has changed since then, some not so much. The Edelman Trust Barometer this year says that trust is in decline. In fact, we're entering an age of grievance where over 60% of us worldwide are saying that the system is out to get us. So how many of you feel that trust is in decline? Show of hands. And how many of you feel powerless or at least puzzled about what to do about it? Yes, you're not alone. The same survey shows that the institutions we used to hold in high esteem, from government to business to NGOs and to the media, are losing the credibility that they used to have. Now, that's not a good thing, because when trust is in decline, everything slows down. I have a cousin who's been putting up a building near Junction Mall in Nairobi. Every time he needs to order a lorry of sand, he has to go all the way to Juja, to the place where the sand is sourced. He has to get into his car and follow the lorry all the way into Nairobi to make sure that the sand gets where it's supposed to get. Now multiply the cost of that verification, that supervision across our economy. All the goods that come in through the port of Mombasa, imagine them traveling through the corridors all the way to Nairobi, to Malabar, to Kampala, and into the rest of Africa. No wonder everything costs so much. But when trust works, everything speeds up. That's why when we go into the grocery store, we don't have to lab test every tomato that we buy. It's why we, mostly drive on the right side of the road and don't get into car accidents. And it's why money works. A few years ago, I went to the Houston Rodeo. Don't be intimidated, it's just a glorified version of the Nairobi show. Imagine farmers showing off their prize cows, people showing the latest variety of corn, maize, the smell of candy floss, turkey legs in the air. You get the picture. Inside a giant arena is an extravaganza of displays. We have cowboys on broncos, we have ladies barrel racing, and we have mutton busting. That's a unique Southern tradition where little boys and girls around 7 years old put on a helmet and hold onto a sheep. But what I was really waiting for was for the concert. Because, like many Kenyans, I have a secret love for country music. And I knew that there was going to be a big country star coming up. Next, there's an announcement. There's going to be an intermission. It'll be 30 minutes. Go grab your drinks and come back. I was really excited about the concert, and I also wanted the drink. But I was very skeptical that they were going to be able to pull off the transformation to bring in a concert in such a short time. So I sat in my seat and watched as they put up the stage, mount the lights, test the sound, all in 30 minutes flat, a beautiful stage that looked like it was ready for Taylor or Beyonce to descend from the heavens. Amazing. And in those few minutes, all the sawdust was gone, the cow dung, and the only thing left on the floor was my jaw. As everybody was singing, dancing, enjoying the music, all I could think of was trust. Because for such a spectacular production to be pulled off, everybody had to do exactly what they said they were going to do, when they said they were going to do it, and how they said they were going to do it. Later on, I learned that the Houston Rodeo gets almost 3 million visitors a year, about the same amount of all tourists that came to Kenya last year. You see, when you have integrity, you can do great things. Imagine if all of us were keeping our promises in all the trade and the business that we do across the continent of Africa. It would drive prosperity. It would drive hope. In fact, what is economic development except trust at scale? So, what do we do to make our societies more trustworthy? Here's a useful metaphor. Imagine trust as a giant intercontinental bank account. Each individual puts in deposits, and over time you build up a balance sheet from a long track record of trustworthiness. Some of us have very, very bad track records. We're almost bankrupt. So how then can we increase the deposits that we make into this giant bank account of trust? Now, like most of us, I'm a work in progress, trying to get better every day. But I've observed 4 principles that might be helpful as we think about how to drive trust in our communities, countries, and continent. First, start with yourself. You know, when Michael Jackson said that you should start with the man in the mirror, he was onto something. Lately, it's become really fashionable to blame CEOs, politicians, and other leaders. But these people don't come out of nowhere. They come from the communities. They come from us. In fact, they are us. So perhaps one way to start moving our communities forward is to start looking at ourselves and practicing the muscle of becoming more trustworthy. Is it really true that my individual behavior has anything to do with a culture of trust in the country at large? Let me share with you a study that was done at the University of Zurich that many call the wallet study. In this study, the research assistants went across the world to over 40 countries and 300 cities, and they gave out 17,000 wallets that they returned claiming they were lost. Inside the wallet sometimes was a key, varying amounts of money, and the contacts of the purported owner. And they waited to see who would return the wallets. It was a fascinating study, and they found that there was indeed a correlation between those countries where the wallet was returned and those that have very high social capital and development. I'll leave it up to you to decide where your country fell on the scale. So this says that we can talk about systemic change, but one of the things that we can start doing today is to practice building that muscle of doing what we say and being faithful in every way that we can. That's deposit number 1. A second deposit is to start with what you have. Many of us know exactly what we think we need to see to make our countries and our communities more trustworthy. But we always imagine that we need permission, maybe a grant, or the government to change. But the reality is, as long as you have breath, and you have a neighbor, and you have intent, you can do a lot. When I first came back to Kenya, I had a long commute in the morning to my job. And I got more and more concerned when in the early morning, I would notice young people crossing the road to a primary school close to where I lived. One morning, I drew the line where I saw a little boy just dodge a bus to land in front of Mkokoteni as he lugged a backpack that was almost the same size as he was. So I set aside a bit of my salary, and I talked to the school across the road and convinced them to volunteer one of their employees to come in 90 minutes early and stay 90 minutes late. We would provide the salary for the employee and also a crossing guard jacket. All the school had to do was say yes and provide the sign that said, "Stop Children Crossing," which the kids lovingly called the lollipop. The lollipop project rolled out. We knew we were onto something when the Nairobi City County came on board, and the police soon gave us a list of 100 schools that they wanted us to handle. Now, did we change the entire education system? No. But we did make a deposit, and deposits add up. As they say in Kiswahili, haba na haba kujaza kibaba. A little bit at a time fills the barrel. Here's another idea about how to build trust. Give it time. Like the giant baobab tree, and just like you can't make an old friend, good things take time. When my cousin announced that she was getting married, I knew we were in for it. That's because in many African and Asian traditions, a wedding is never a one-day affair. We knew there'd be a visit to the groom's family, and then the bride's family, and then the groom's family, each one much more elaborate than the one before. And then there'd be the gifts, cows, water tanks, envelopes. It went on and on. When I was younger, I used to get irritated by all of this. Why couldn't they just hurry up and pay it all off in one day? But over time, I came to understand that through this face-to-face continued interaction with the other family, you would come to understand their personalities and their pet peeves, their quarrels and their quirks. Now, in the olden days, this was a matter of life and death. In-laws literally expanded your territory. They were your defense system. They were your social safety net. And they had to be handled with absolute care. I saw this investment pay off for a friend of mine. When her father lost his home, the first person that he called were her husband's parents. And they took him in and let him stay with them until he was able to get back on his feet. So trust takes time, it takes investment. Usually, best of all, face-to-face. Here's one last idea. Tell better stories. Homo sapiens are storytelling creatures. We love simple stories with villains, victims, victors. But we have to be careful because at the heart of every conflict is a story about stories. Wars and rumors of wars. Some time back, we Kenyans found ourselves in a time when we were telling toxic stories. There'd been a disputed election, and we found ourselves dehumanizing each other. Lots of fake news, splitting families, communities, colleagues apart. All of us were under incredible pressure to choose a side. Sound familiar? But my friends and I resisted. So we created the Citizens Pathway Group, a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-party network of professionals. And we started putting out messages of hope and unity. We were surprised that when we called for our first gathering, over 200 people showed up at the very height of the conflict. That's when we discovered that when you give humans an option to despair and division, they will always opt for a message of humanity and hope. You might think that this worked because these were just our friends, but it can work for strangers too, especially those that you consider unrelatable. Look for the human behind the words. Connect at a human level. Show grace that you're also a work in progress and that we can all move forward together. I hope you see a pattern. Trust is not just about saving. It's about investment, patience, consistency. Before the resume, before the contract, before the deal, before the marriage, be a more trustworthy person first. Find a third way. Tell a better story. Give grace. Build connection. Deposits matter, but what keeps society alive is that trust flows from me to you, from neighbor to neighbor, from Nairobi to Kenya to Africa and the world. Back to that bus in Oregon. The little blonde girl has blurted out, "Can I touch your hair?" Everybody's frozen. She's waiting, her mother's waiting, everybody on the bus is waiting. I look over into her eyes and smile. "Sure, come on over." As she sinks her fingers into my hair, she looks like she's discovered the secret to the universe. That's the power of curiosity. That's the spark of connection. So the next, tempted to say, trust is broken and all is lost. Remember this. Trust is the currency of our collective future, and it starts with me. It starts with who? Me. Exactly. Thank you.